The 1970s were a wild, colorful, electrified decade, bursting with some of the biggest musical icons the world has ever known. We're talking bands so huge you could say just one syllable: Zepp, Mac, Queen, Stones, and instantly summon 10 different songs in your head. But here's the twist. For every superstar selling out arenas, there were equally talented artists who slipped under the radar. Musicians who wrote brilliant songs, reinvented genres, or influenced future legends, yet never got the fame they deserved. Sometimes it was bad timing, sometimes it was bad management. Sometimes it was the universe saying, "Here, let me scramble your entire career just for fun." Today we're shining a big retro spotlight on the forgotten legends of the 70s. 10 artists and bands who absolutely should have been bigger. And if you already know all 10 of these, congratulations. You're officially a deep-cut vinyl archaeologist. Let's drop the needle and start at number 10. Number 10, Big Star. Our first underrated legend is Big Star, the musical equivalent of discovering an incredible restaurant only to find out it closed 40 years ago. This band had everything going for them: beautifully layered harmonies, crisp melodies, and hooks so catchy they could pull a truck out of a ditch. Critics adored them. Musicians adored them. Radio programmers? Apparently, they were busy alphabetizing their tape shelves because Big Star never got the airplay they deserved. The real tragedy wasn't the music. It was the label. Their distribution collapsed so dramatically, it's basically a case study in how not to run a business. Stores literally couldn't get the albums. Imagine creating a masterpiece and the world just never gets to hear it. Today, Big Star is considered one of the most influential bands of all time. Back then, they were practically a rumor. But if influence were money, these guys would be billionaires. Transition. But if Big Star were victims of bad luck, our next band suffered from something far worse: a manager who must have signed their contract using invisible ink. Number 9. Badfinger. Badfinger is one of the most heartbreaking stories in rock history. This was the band the Beatles personally handpicked for their Apple Records label. They had hits, real radio hits. Songs like Day After Day and Baby Blue still hold up today. They had harmonies, songwriting chops, stage presence, everything you'd want in a major band. But behind the scenes, their manager signed them into what might be the worst management contract in music history. The band worked, toured, recorded, sold albums, and barely saw any money. When you're famous but broke, something has gone terribly wrong. Their story spiraled into financial ruin and tragedy, even though their music remains incredible. Transition. From financial disaster, we moved to a band whose only mistake was trying to shine in the era of giants. Verse 8, Uriah Heep. If you ever wondered what would happen if hard rock met fantasy literature and added a choir for good measure, you'd get Uriah Heep. These guys were theatrical, ambitious, and musically adventurous, and their live shows were epic. But unfortunately for them, the 70s hard rock Mount Rushmore was already full. It's tough to get noticed when Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, and Black Sabbath are all releasing albums at the same time. That's like trying to start a food truck between 3 Michelin star restaurants. Still, Uriah Heep was influential. Their harmonies inspired power metal. Their fantasy themes influenced prog rock. And in Russia, they were absolutely massive. Fans caused such chaos at the airport that security probably needed a vacation afterward. Transition. Now let's talk about a band that didn't just break barriers. They smashed them with platform boots. Number 7. The Runaways. Picture this. A group of teenage girls in the mid-70s walks onto a stage with electric guitars, leather jackets, and enough attitude to peel paint off the walls. That was the Runaways. Joan Jett, Lita Ford, Cherie Currie. A lineup so strong it reads like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame waiting room. Their sound was raw, rebellious, and years ahead of its time. But instead of celebrating them, the industry treated them like a glitch in the system. Criticism, exploitation, a manager who makes sleazy Hollywood cliches look subtle. They faced it all, and despite everything, they still rocked harder than most of the guys on the scene. Transition from raw rebellion we move to someone whose music was the complete opposite: soft, gentle, and quietly beautiful. Number 6. Nick Drake. Nick Drake is the patron saint of quiet geniuses. His music was delicate, haunting, and poetic. The kind of songs you hear once and instantly feel like you've known forever. His fingerpicking was gorgeous, his melodies floating like candlelight in the dark. But Nick's shyness became his greatest obstacle. He rarely performed live. He avoided interviews, he barely promoted anything. And in the 70s, if you didn't put yourself out there, the label wasn't going to do it for you. They basically tossed his albums into the world like confetti and hoped someone would clean it up. The beautiful twist? Today, he gets millions of streams, commercials, movies, playlists. His music finally found an audience decades after the world originally missed it. Transition. Now let's shift from soft and melancholic to, well, the musical equivalent of graduate-level calculus. Number 5. Gentle Giant. If you've ever listened to music and thought, this is great, but can it be more confusing? Then Gentle Giant is your band. They were brilliant, genuinely brilliant, with complex arrangements most humans can't even count, let alone play. These guys blended medieval music, jazz, rock, and classical into one sound that was so innovative, the mainstream didn't know what to do with it. Radio DJs probably stared at their records like, how do I even describe this? But musicians loved them. They influenced Rush. They influenced Dream Theater. They inspired an entire generation of prog rock fans who enjoy tapping out time signatures on the steering wheel. Transition. From brain-melting complexity, we head back to pure, raw blues rock fire. Number 4. Rory Gallagher. If charisma were measured in guitar licks, Rory Gallagher would have been unstoppable. His playing was powerful, soulful, and instantly recognizable. He wasn't flashy. He didn't wear glitter. He didn't smash guitars on stage. He just played. And he played better than almost anyone. Even Jimi Hendrix was once asked what it felt like to be the greatest guitarist alive. His answer? I don't know. Ask Rory Gallagher. That quote alone should have made Rory a superstar. But he refused to play the marketing game. No gimmicks, no scandals, no hype machine, just music. Fans adored him. Critics admired him. And Ireland worshipped him so much they built a literal statue in his honor. Transition. Speaking of power, our next band could have blown out your speakers with a single riff. Number 3. Mountain. Mountain sounded like a thunderstorm rolling through your living room. Leslie West's guitar tone was so massive, it practically needed its own zip code. Their biggest hit, Mississippi Queen, is legendary. But the band had a whole catalog of equally heavy, equally brilliant music. So what happened? The classic trio of issues: internal conflicts, timing problems, and record label headaches. But before all that, they played Woodstock. Yes, that Woodstock. Before they even had a record deal. If anyone deserved more fame, it was Mountain. Transition from heavy rock, we now slow things down for one of the 70s most overlooked songwriters. Number 2. Barbara Keith. Barbara Keith is one of the best singer-songwriters most people have never heard of. Her voice had a warm, earthy depth. Her songwriting blended folk, rock, and Americana long before those genres became trendy. Her problem wasn't talent, it was contracts. One label shelved her album for years. Another wanted full ownership of her songs for life. Barbara responded like a legend. She walked away from the entire industry. No drama, no public meltdown. Just no thanks. Her songs eventually got attention, but usually through other artists covering them. She deserved the spotlight herself. Transition. And finally, let's wrap things up with a lightning round of incredible 70s acts who almost made it big. Number 1. The Almost Wear Legends. The 70s were full of artists who came close, incredibly close, but didn't quite break through. Here's a quick rundown of some true hidden gems. Shuggy Otis, who turned down an offer to join the Rolling Stones. Emmett Rhodes, a one-man band genius compared to the Beatles. Trapeze, the band that launched Glenn Hughes before Deep Purple. Stars, who basically invented 80s glam rock 10 years early. The Babies with a young John Waite who would explode in the 80s. Each of these artists had star-level talent. They just weren't in the right place at the right time. And that wraps up our list of the forgotten legends of the 70s. The artists who deserve so much more recognition than they ever received. These musicians weren't just background noise in the decade of rock. They were innovators, trailblazers, and in many cases the blueprint for entire genres that came after them. If you discovered someone new today, tell me in the comments. And if you already knew half this list, congratulations. Your music taste is officially vintage certified. Hit like, hit subscribe, and keep that turntable spinning. More nostalgia is headed your way.